I'll never forget the first time I was asked the question straight to my face in a crowded room in Jerusalem. "Rabbi, you teach so much about gratitude, but why does praying for money never seem to work for real wealth?" That cut right to the bone. And it's a question that's haunted minds for centuries. What's missing from our prayers, from our hopes, from our heartfelt requests for abundance? Why do so many people pray desperately for money, yet remain trapped in the same financial struggles year after year? And why do the wealthiest Jewish families, billionaires, philanthropists, legends of industry, seem to approach prayer and prosperity in an entirely different way? Let me start by sharing my own struggle, because this isn't theoretical for me. Years ago, I stood in a tiny apartment with bills overdue, a young family asleep in the next room, and an aching feeling that I was letting everyone down. I was praying with intensity, pleading for prosperity, for a miracle, for some kind of divine intervention. But every month, the same cycle repeated. No answers arrived, only deeper frustration, more doubts, more sleepless nights. Was I not praying hard enough? Was something fundamentally wrong with me? Was I being punished? In those nights, my prayers felt like they hit the ceiling and fell back down into my lap, heavy with disappointment. But I wasn't alone. The truth is that every wealthy Jewish family I've known from Manhattan to Zurich has shared some version of that same story, not at the beginning of their journey, but at the turning point, when they gave up desperate requests and started living differently. The transformation always comes down to a single shift of ancient wisdom. Praying for money by itself doesn't generate wealth. It traps us in longing, in scarcity, in endless waiting. It keeps us in the role of a beggar, not a builder. I'll reveal why, and I'll show you exactly how to break this pattern step by step, using principles that have been passed down for thousands of years and validated by the lives of some of the most successful people on earth. Jewish tradition, going back to the very words of the Talmud and the Torah, never treats prayer as a shopping list. The greatest Jewish billionaires, the philanthropists, the names you'd recognize, Bronfman, Safra, Lauder, Perelman, never became wealthy by focusing on how much money can I get. Instead, their prayers, their rituals, their daily practices aimed for something different. Clarity of purpose, the opportunity to serve, the chance to build and to repair the world. In Hebrew, we call it tikkun olam, to fix what is broken. Money in this framework is power only when it's a tool for meaning, never the goal itself. Let's break this down piece by piece, because this is where most people go wrong. When you ask, "Please God, send me money," the hidden message beneath those words is, "I don't have enough, I'm empty, I lack, and only you can fill it." From a spiritual perspective, this is a recipe for poverty consciousness. Our sages teach, that which you repeatedly declare as your reality, even in prayer, becomes the shape of your world. You reinforce lack every time you pray for what you don't possess, unless you also transform the underlying reasons you want it. Prayer without a change in identity, without a shift in action, is just wishing, and wishing has never built wealth. Now, let me share a story you'll never hear in business school, but one that changed my understanding forever. Years ago in Tel Aviv, there was a shopkeeper named Yaakov who struggled year after year. He prayed famously, loudly, daily, never missing a word from the Siddur. He was known in the community for his devotion, but his luck never changed. His store was always on the edge of closing. He had debt, he had stress, he had prayers, but no prosperity. One day, an older man came into the shop, someone Yaakov had never seen before. He looked around, watched Yaakov for a few moments, and then said something that stopped him cold. "You're praying for money, Yaakov, but you never pray to become someone worthy of holding wealth. Change your prayer, and everything will change." Yaakov was offended at first. He thought, "Who is this stranger to judge my prayers?" But something in those words stayed with him. That night he sat with his wife and asked her honestly, "If God gave us 1,000,000 shekels tomorrow, what would we do with it?" And she said painfully, "Pay off debt, worry less, maybe take a vacation." But then she paused. And then what? Would we be different people? Would we know how to keep it? Would we use it well? They realized they had no vision beyond relief. They had no plan, no sense of purpose tied to prosperity. They were praying for escape, not for responsibility. So Yaakov shifted his prayer. Instead of "give me money," he started praying, Give me wisdom, clarity, and courage to act with kindness, honesty, and generosity. Help me become someone who serves others and builds something meaningful. Within a year, his shop became the cornerstone of the block. He started offering credit to struggling families, advice to young entrepreneurs, and partnership opportunities to others in the community. Money followed, not because he prayed for it, but because he became someone worthy of managing it. His identity changed, and his reality shifted to match. That's the first principle. Prayer is not about convincing God to give you what you want. It's about aligning yourself with the kind of person who can receive, steward, and multiply what you're asking for. In Jewish wisdom, there are two main prayers related to wealth that reveal the core of this teaching. First, the blessing of parnasa, sustenance, is always paired with a call for good deeds, for mitzvot, for the ability to share and uplift others. We don't pray, "Give me food so I can survive." We pray, "Give me sustenance so I can do good in the world, so I can support my family, so I can give to those in need." The purpose is embedded in the request. Second, our daily prayers ask for osher b'shalom, prosperity and peace, a prosperity that is not marred by worry, conflict, envy, or moral compromise. The act of explicitly asking for money alone tends to isolate us from the true power of abundance. Why? Because money is never pure. It amplifies who we already are. Praying for money rather than wisdom, generosity, and opportunity to make a difference is like asking for gasoline without owning a vehicle. It's just fuel without direction, and it's dangerous. Let me give you another example, this time from New York. One Jewish entrepreneur in Chicago, a man named David, started by praying for his startup to succeed financially. For 3 years, not a single angel investor supported him. He pitched dozens of times. He refined his business plan. He worked 18-hour days, but nothing moved. He was talented, hardworking, and faithful. So why wasn't it working? One Shabbat, he sat with his rabbi and shared his frustration. The rabbi asked him a simple question. "David, what do you pray for every morning?" David said, "I pray for investors, for funding, for my business to take off." The rabbi nodded and said, "That's your problem. You're praying for results, not for readiness. Pray to become the kind of leader people trust, the kind of partner people want to work with, the kind of person who creates value for others. Then the money will come." David was skeptical, but he tried it. He started waking early, reciting the prayer, Modeh Ani, thankful am I, to reinforce gratitude for what he already had, not what he lacked. He also began surrounding himself with partners who shared his vision for helping youth find meaningful work, not just generating profits. He stopped chasing investors and started building relationships, offering value, and creating a reputation for integrity and service. Within 6 months, his company received $2 million in funding. His prayer shifted from "give me" to "make me a source." Wealth in Jewish language is a river, not a reservoir. It flows through you, not to you. Here's the key insight. Wealth is attracted to people who are ready to manage it, not people who are desperate for it. Desperation repels opportunity. Readiness attracts it. Now let me tell you about a non-Jewish friend named Martha, a single mother in Brooklyn, who asked for guidance. She was praying every night, "Bring me money. I need it. My kids need it. Please, God, bring me money." She was sincere, faithful, and struggling. When I told her, "Try praying for wisdom to recognize opportunity and the courage to act, and then follow it with one tiny act of giving, even if you have almost nothing," she looked at me like I was crazy. She said, "Rabbi, I barely have enough to feed my kids. You want me to give?" I said, "Yes, even $5, even a meal, even your time. Move the energy, become a channel, not a beggar." She broke down crying, but she agreed to try. She gave $5 to a neighbor in need, someone even worse off than she was. And within a few weeks, she was offered a new job, double the salary she'd ever earned. Her prayers for clarity and willingness to act shifted her experience. Why? Because she stopped identifying as someone who only receives and started identifying as someone who gives. That shift in identity opened doors she couldn't see before. This is not magic. This is how human psychology, spiritual law, and social dynamics work together. When you act like a source of value, people treat you like one. When you act like a victim, people avoid you. What's the actionable lesson here? First, stop praying for money as if it's an end in itself. Start praying for traits, for opportunities to serve, for courage, for discernment, for worthy partners, for healthy relationships with money, never for the thing itself. Money is a tool. Tools are worthless without skill and purpose. Second, commit to an act of generosity from whatever you have now, even if it's emotional support, a ride, a meal, advice, a kind word. Move the energy. Become a channel, not a closed loop. Jewish wisdom says, the world stands on three things: Torah, service, and acts of kindness. That applies to wealth as much as anything. If you want to receive, you must first give. Not because it's transactional, but because it transforms your identity from scarcity to abundance. Third, set a measurable intention. Every prayer should be paired with a daily or weekly ritual, a call, a visit, a handwritten note, a donation, a practical act that forces you to move from longing to creating. Don't wait for miracles. Instead, generate them by asking, who can I help today, even before I am helped? That question alone will change your life. Now here are the most common mistakes people make when they pray for money, and why these mistakes trap them in poverty. Mistake number 1. They pray for a windfall instead of developing skills, relationships, discipline, and a spirit of service. They want the result without the process, but wealth is always the result of value creation. If you're not creating value, you're not going to attract wealth. Prayer without action is fantasy. Mistake number 2. They isolate themselves, believing their lack is a divine test rather than an invitation to join with others. Jewish tradition is deeply communal. Wealth is built in partnership, in networks, in collaboration. If you're praying alone and acting alone, you're cutting yourself off from the very channels through which abundance flows. Mistake number 3. They treat money as spiritual proof instead of responsibility. They think, if God loves me, he'll make me rich. But in Jewish tradition, wealth is always an assignment. It's a trust, never just a reward. The question is not, will God give me money? The question is, am I ready to use money wisely, ethically, and generously if I receive it? If the answer is no, then you're not ready, and the universe will not hand you something you'll misuse. Mistake number 4. They avoid confronting self-sabotaging patterns: procrastination, envy, blaming others, fear of rejection, fear of success. Every billionaire I know broke these patterns by integrating prayer with practical action, advice, and accountability. They didn't just pray. They hired coaches, joined mastermind groups, read books, took courses, sought mentors. Prayer opened their hearts. Action opened their wallets. Here's a validation from neuroscience that supports this ancient wisdom. Studies show that focusing the mind on scarcity triggers stress responses that shut down creative and strategic thinking. When you're in survival mode, your brain literally cannot access the higher functions needed for innovation, risk-taking, and long-term planning. Gratitude, service, and purpose activate the prefrontal cortex, which is responsible for clarity, decision-making, and opportunity recognition. Jewish prayer is designed to shift the mindset from poverty mode to growth mode, exactly what modern psychology confirms. Let me share another story, this one about a family I know personally. In the early 1990s, a Jewish family in South Africa was on the verge of bankruptcy. They owned a small textile business that was failing. The father, Moshe, was a devout man. He prayed every day, attended synagogue, followed all the commandments. But the business was dying. One evening, his teenage daughter asked him, "Abba, if God is good, why are we suffering?" Moshe didn't have an answer, but that question forced him to re-examine his prayers. He realized he'd been praying for the business to survive, for customers to come, for debts to be forgiven, but he'd never prayed for wisdom to pivot, for courage to try something new, for the humility to ask for help. So he changed his approach. He prayed for guidance. Then he reached out to other business owners, joined a trade association, took a course on modern marketing, and started treating employees not as costs, but as partners. He shared profits, offered ownership stakes, and built a culture of trust and innovation. Within 3 years, the business was thriving. Within 10 years, they expanded internationally. Moshe always said, "The business didn't change, I changed. And when I changed, everything else followed." That's the second principle. You are the variable. The economy, the market, the competition, those are constants. You are the only thing you can control. Prayer is the tool that transforms you. not your circumstances. Now let's talk about a specific Jewish practice that embodies this principle, the practice of tzedakah, which is often translated as charity, but really means justice or righteousness. In Jewish law, giving is not optional. It's mandatory. Even the poorest person is required to give. Why? Because giving affirms your identity as someone who has something to offer. It breaks the mindset of scarcity and replaces it with abundance. There's a famous teaching from the Talmud. More than the rich person does for the poor person does for the rich person. What does that mean? It means that when you give, you become a partner in the circulation of blessing. You're not just helping someone else, you're affirming your own role in the ecosystem of abundance. You're declaring, I am not powerless, I am not empty, I have something to give. That declaration is more powerful than any prayer for money. Let me give you a practical exercise right now, something you can do today before you finish listening to this. Exercise number 1. Write down 3 things you're grateful for that have nothing to do with money. Relationships, health, talents, experiences, lessons learned, moments of joy. Read them out loud, feel them. Then say, thank you for these gifts. Help me use them to serve others. That's your new prayer. Not, give me money, but help me use what I already have to create value. Exercise number 2. Identify one person in your life who needs help and offer it. Not money necessarily. Maybe it's advice, a connection, a kind word, a favor. Do it today. Do it without expecting anything in return. Notice how it makes you feel. Notice how it shifts your identity from someone who needs to someone who gives. Return in 7 days and repeat these exercises. The difference may seem invisible at first, but over time you'll start to notice something remarkable. Opportunities will appear. People will reach out. Doors will open. Not because you prayed harder, but because you became someone who is ready to walk through those doors. Let me tell you about another layer of this wisdom, one that most people miss. The concept of kavanah, or intention. In Jewish prayer, it's not enough to say the words, you have to mean them. You have to infuse them with intention, with focus, with sincerity. The same applies to wealth. It's not enough to want money. You have to know why you want it, what you'll do with it, and who you'll become because of it. I once met a man named Samuel who was obsessed with becoming a millionaire. He read every book, attended every seminar, followed every guru, but he was still broke. When I asked him, why do you want to be a millionaire? He said, so I can be free, so I can travel, so I can prove to people that I'm successful. I said, those are all about you. What about others? What about service? What about impact? He looked confused. I said, until you have a purpose beyond yourself, you'll never have the discipline, the focus, or the relationships needed to build wealth. Wealth is a byproduct of value creation. If you're only creating value for yourself, you're not creating enough. Samuel went away angry, but a year later, he came back. He said, you were right. I stopped chasing money and started building something I believed in, a program to teach financial literacy to kids in underserved communities. I wasn't thinking about profit, I was thinking about impact. And now, investors are calling me. Partnerships are forming. Money is coming in ways I never imagined. His intention shifted and his results followed. That's the third principle. Intention shapes outcome. If your intention is selfish, your outcomes will be limited. If your intention is generous, your outcomes will multiply. Now, let's talk about a controversial teaching that many people struggle with. The idea that poverty can be a spiritual trap, not just an economic one. In Jewish mysticism, particularly in Kabbalah, there's a concept called klippot, shells or husks that block the flow of divine light. When you're stuck in poverty consciousness, you're surrounded by klippot. You see the world through a lens of scarcity, fear, and limitation. You make decisions based on survival, not vision. You hoard instead of share. You compete instead of collaborate. And ironically, those behaviors keep you poor. Breaking free from poverty, consciousness requires more than positive thinking. It requires a complete shift in identity. You have to stop seeing yourself as a victim and start seeing yourself as a creator. You have to stop asking, why is this happening to me? And start asking, but what can I create from this? That shift is what Jewish sages call teshuvah, return. You return to your true self, the self that is made in the image of the Creator. the self that is designed to build, to give, to flourish. I once worked with a woman named Rachel who was drowning in debt. She'd made bad decisions, trusted the wrong people and lost everything. She was bitter, angry, and stuck. She said to me, "Rabbi, I've prayed for years. God doesn't care about me." I said, "Rachel, you're praying to a God you resent. How can you receive blessings from a source you don't trust?" She broke down crying. We worked together for months, not on financial strategies, but on healing her relationship with faith, with herself, with money. We reframed her story from "I'm a failure" to "I'm learning." We shifted her prayers from "fix me" to "guide me." And slowly, step by step, her circumstances changed. She got a new job, paid off her debts, and started a small business that now supports her family. Rachel didn't become a billionaire, but she became free. And freedom in Jewish wisdom is the foundation of prosperity. If you're enslaved to fear, to debt, to other people's opinions, you can't build wealth. But if you're free, free in your mind, free in your spirit, free in your relationships, then wealth becomes possible. Let me share one more story, and then I'll give you a complete action plan. There was a man named Eli, a real estate developer in Miami, who lost everything in the 2008 financial crisis. He went from millions to bankruptcy in less than a year. He told me, "Rabbi, I feel like God abandoned me." I said, "Or maybe God is stripping away everything that was built on the wrong foundation so you can rebuild on the right one." He didn't like that answer, but he sat with it. Over time, he realized that his entire business had been built on ego, on status, on competition. He'd made money, but he'd lost his family, his health, and his peace. So he started over, but this time with different values. He prayed not for success, but for integrity. He prayed not for deals, but for partnerships. He prayed not for recognition, but for the ability to serve. And within 5 years, he'd rebuilt his business, but this time it was sustainable, ethical, and fulfilling. He said to me, "The first time I made money, it owned me. This time, I own it." And the difference is everything. That's the fourth principle. Wealth without wisdom is bondage. Wisdom without wealth is potential. But when you combine the two, you have freedom and impact. Now here's your complete action plan, step by step, for the next 7 days. Day 1. Change your morning prayer. Instead of asking for money, ask for 3 things. Wisdom to see opportunities, courage to act on them, and generosity to share what you receive. Write it down, say it out loud. Day 2. Identify one skill you can improve that would increase your value in the marketplace. Take one action toward developing that skill. Sign up for a course, read a book, ask a mentor. Day 3. Give something away. Money if you can, but if not, then time, advice, or a kind gesture. Do it intentionally, as a declaration that you are a source, not just a receiver. Day 4. Audit your relationships. Who are you spending time with? Are they lifting you up or pulling you down? Are they focused on scarcity or abundance? Make a plan to spend more time with people who inspire growth. Day 5. Write down your why. Why do you want wealth? What will you do with it? Who will you serve? Make it specific, make it compelling. This becomes the intention behind your prayers and your actions. Day 6. Reach out to someone who can help you. A mentor, a potential partner, a successful person in your field. Ask for advice, not money. Build the relationship. Day 7. Reflect. What changed this week? What did you learn? What opportunities appeared? Write it down. Share it in the comments. This creates accountability and reinforces the new patterns. Repeat this cycle every week for 3 months. I promise you, your life will not be the same. To those frustrated, feeling left out, believing prosperity is for the lucky or the ruthless, hear this ancient, universal Jewish lesson. Wealth is not a miracle, nor a curse. It is a platform to pursue a purpose. It multiplies only when we are ready to use it well for ourselves and others. Praying for money alone keeps you waiting at the edge of the river, watching it flow past. Praying to become a source opens the floodgates. You become the river. So how will you pray today? What new channels will you open? Start with wisdom, with courage, with a single act in the direction of service. You are never too late, never too small. Jewish billionaires, ancient sages, and modern scientists agree. The real reward is in becoming the kind of person who uses wealth rather than waits for it. I invite you to try this, to share your story, to change your prayer, and to see what opens in your life beginning now.